Thank you for joining me. My name is Diana Serio. I'm one of the secondary ELA coordinators, and I'm going to talk to you about leveling readers and what this means at the secondary level. All the documents that I'm going to have today you can find on this tiny URL, tinyurl.com/reading summit. Let me actually go there right now. So once you go there, you're going to go to breakout sessions. And then you're looking at leveling readers, DSerio. And the documents I'm going to go through today are on here. And I will put the PowerPoint on here when I'm done with that. Okay? All right. So let me get back to the PowerPoint. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background. We're going to be using the Fountas and Pinnell system at the secondary level. And basically, if you're not familiar with it, it assigns a letter to a book based on the complexity of the book. So the higher the level, the more complex the book is. So kindergarten, I know it's kind of cut off the screen here, but kindergarten starts with an A, and you have this document on the tiny URL, by the way. But it starts with A and goes all the way up through our 8th grade, our 7th and 8th grade at a Z, and into our adult books of a Z+. Okay? So when we have students coming into us at grade 6, hopefully they're at this VW range. Okay? That's a little bit of background. I just want to talk to you about the bands. So we've decided that it's probably going to be easier for us to identify the band of text a student is in rather than trying to identify the exact letter a student's at. So here are some characteristics of the leveling bands. I'm going to talk about this for a second, and then if you could pause this video and read through it yourself so you know what exactly is in the band. But just a couple things to point out. So in the NOPQ band, it's pretty easy for a student to go from an N book to a P book, or an N book to a Q book. There's not a lot of variance within that band, but there is a lot of variance across bands. So from a Q book to an R book, a student's going to need teacher guidance to get him or her from that one level to the other. Okay? So within the band, not too much variance. Across bands, there's a lot of variance. And the other thing I want to point out is that each band builds on the skills of the previous bands. So an XYZ book, or an X book, for example, is going to have all the characteristics of books A through W. Okay? So will you pause this for a second and read through those bands? Are you done? Did you really pause it? I guess I'll never know. Moving on. If you want to know more about these bands, on that tiny URL, I've actually put up the Fountas and Pinnell bands of text characteristics, and this is for books A through Z. So you can look at a letter A and see what are the characteristics of an A book all the way through Z. Okay? So that's just a little bit of background. So, where should we start? We're suggesting to start with students who have not met the standard on STAR. Students who have passed the STAR, consider giving them a STAR correlation chart. And I'm going to talk about that at the very end of this. So start with those kids who haven't met standard or who have just barely passed. And start by giving them a word test, the Fountas and Pinnell word test, levels 2 through 8. Those are on the tiny URL. Let me go there now. So it's the Fountas and Pinnell Where to Start word test. I'm going to download this so I can make this bigger. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to open it so you can see it. And this word test, I'm not going to read through all the directions here, but I think you should definitely if you're giving the test. But where to start, how to use it. You're going to ask the students to read the list for the level below his or her grade level. So for example, 3rd graders should begin with list 2, 4th graders with list 3, 5th graders with list 4. And you're just going to give them a list of 20 words. What you're really looking for is you're looking for about 16 words or more correct. If you scroll down on this sheet, there's more detailed directions, but it tells you really where you're looking at the 16 to 20 range is where you're hoping for. Okay? Also in this document, you have, this is the teacher example, so you have list 2, 3, 4, 5 on one sheet for the teacher, and then all the way through 8. So as the student's reading, the teacher is going through and either check or X or whatever system works for you, just so you can keep track of how many are right or wrong. Okay? So that's the teacher's example, and this is what the student would get. So the student would get a list, let me make this smaller, of these 20 words that they would just go down and read through. So one question you might have is, okay, so if they have to get 16 words right, once they miss 5 words, I can end the test. Well, yeah, you can, but if it were me doing this, I would have the student read it so they can't figure out what I'm doing. You know, I don't want to take it out of their hands and then think, oh, I must have got some wrong. I would rather just have them continue to read it and then give them the lower list. Okay? So you have list 2 all the way through 8. Okay? So the neat thing about this word test is that it's fast, right? That's not going to take more than a couple minutes. And depending on how many they get right, you can kind of estimate about where they're going to be in this band. Okay? So you can estimate that they're going to be at that S level or that U level. Now here's one thing to really pay attention to, because if they're within bands, I don't know how much farther you need to go. Okay? There's going to be another step I'm going to give you, but if you remember back to this, if they fall between that R and S band, then I don't know how much you need to pinpoint it more than either giving them an R or an S test, which I'm going to show you in a second. Hopefully that made sense. But if they fell across bands, then you are really going to try to pinpoint which of these bands you can get them in. Okay? So you started with the word test, and because of the word test, you have a good idea that the kid is at a level S, for example. Okay? So based on that, consider giving them the Teachers College Assessment for Independent Reading Levels. Levels L through Z are on the website. Actually, levels A through Z are on the website, but you'd probably need L through Z. And you're looking at 2 parts as they do this. You're looking at how well they read orally. They're going to read to you the first 100 words aloud. And you're also looking at how well they understand what they've read. You're looking at the comprehension questions. So there's 2 parts within those 2 parts. So their oral reading ability, you're looking at how accurate and how fluently they read. So let me go to that test before we get too much ahead of ourselves. Let me close that. And you can find these tests, Teachers College Assessment for Independent Reading Levels. I couldn't post all the files because it's enormous. But if you go to this link and then you look at levels L through Z, I'm going to open this. And let's say I'm going to start with level S. And you have 2. You have 2 to choose from. Okay, so if you know the teacher next year, if you know the teacher, below you, grade level below you did it, you might want to try to do the 2 and they probably did the 1, I'm thinking. Okay, so let's start with this one. And you have, let me make this a little bit bigger. You have the running record, you have a sample response, and then you have the student copy. Okay, let me start with the running record because this is what the teacher would have. There's a lot of information on this sheet that I'm not going to read to you, but I really do encourage you to read it. Okay? So if you remember, the first thing we're looking at is how well they orally read, how accurate, and how fluently they read. So, what you've got, and this is the teacher example, which is why there's tons of stuff on it. The student example doesn't have this much. So what you have here is you have a passage, and the first 100 words are marked off. This is what they're reading aloud to you orally, because you're looking for how fluent they are, and you're also looking for how accurate they are. I'm going to go ahead and go down to the next page, and we're talking about how accurate they are. You're looking for an accuracy rate of 96%. So with 100 words, you're looking for, if they miss more than 4 words and they never fix it, like if they were to say it and then fix it, I wouldn't count that. But if they never fix it, then you're looking for, they need to get 4 or more. Okay? I mean, they need to get a 96% rate or higher. I think I said that backwards. They need to get 96% or higher. Okay? So, you've looked at their accuracy rate. Now you're looking at their fluency rate. So what you'll do is you actually have a rubric down here at the bottom, and the final score is made up of Was the reader's accuracy rate, that was the first part we talked about, at least 96%? Hopefully, yes. And now the next part says, did the student read with fluency? A score of 3 or 4 on the oral reading fluency scale. That scale is right up here, okay? And if you look, there's fluent, level 4, level 3, which is where they need to get, and level 2 and level 1. So if you're going to be giving this, make sure you read through this so you know the characteristics. So the first part is accuracy and fluency. The next part of what you're looking for is how well they understand what they've read, as measured by 2 criteria: how well they retell the story and how well they answer the comprehension questions. On this paper, let me go back up. So they've read the first 100 words to you. Then they read silently the rest of the passage. Okay? After they read the passage, Teachers College says in writing, retell or summarize what you just read. Me personally, if I were doing this as a teacher, I would just have them orally retell it, because I'm guessing that these students might not enjoy writing. If they're struggling readers, they probably don't want to sit here and write. And plus also, for the time's sake, it's much faster for them to tell me in 30 seconds what the story was about. So I would probably, me personally, I would probably have them orally retell. And then you're looking at their comprehension questions. I personally would have them write these out. Okay? So now what are you looking at for this? So for this, you're looking at, does the reader correctly answer at least 3 questions on the comprehension? There's 4 down below. And did the retelling summary express the important things that happened in the text? Okay? All right, so here's what to do with that rubric then. It says, is this the student's independent reading level? If you did not answer yes to all 4 questions on this final score box, try an easier text. Keep moving to easier text until you find the level at which you are able to answer yes to all 4 questions. Okay? And then the flip side of that, if a student breezed through this, like it was no challenge whatsoever, then you need to step it up another step for them. Okay? So this will hopefully give you an idea of the band that the student can go into. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and talk about, this is also on that that tiny URL, but if you remember at the very beginning of this, I said we're going to focus on the students who have not met the standard on the STAR. Well, what about the students who have? What level can we put them in? So this is on the tiny URL, and this is based on their STAR raw score, the number they got correct on the STAR the year before. So this 6th grade chart I'm going to use with today's 7th graders, right? And so if they got about 41 to 50, we can tell they're probably within this range, okay? And so on and so on. Okay, so there's a 6th grade one, there's a 7th grade one, and there's an 8th grade one. So this is what our 9th grade teachers would use, okay? That's on the tiny URL. Let me go there real quick to show you some other things that are on there that you might be interested in. Let me close that and that. I've got the word test, the STAR correlation chart that I talked to you about. Okay, so I've talked to you about everything on this. This was that slide that talked about, well, the characteristics of within the band. So that is that. Here is my contact information if you have any questions. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for taking the time. And let me know if you have questions. Bye.